now you're the pilot, correct? So you're up front.
Yeah.
Now, what happens? I always wonder, because I remember seeing John Noakes on. Do you remember John Noakes on Blue Peter when he fell out of the bob and he ended up showing the back of his backside on TV because he had a big scar on there? So you've got the brake man. You're at the front. So where are you then, Aaron? Are you what number are you?
So I'm number 3. Yeah.
Right. So what do you do there? Is it just a matter of it's the running power is what it's all about to get off to a good start, and then you can sit and enjoy the ride?
Yeah, that's it. So for number 2 and myself, number 3, it's all about getting that bob off the line and then just zipping it up to as high a speed as we can, basically. Getting in, staying low, having good aerodynamics and staying still and let Brad do the work.
Yeah, it's definitely not a comfortable position for them because we're bending them and twisting them into quite an uncomfortable position to get as aerodynamic as possible. And when you've got 6 times G's pushing you through that is not... Yeah, not
definitely
fun.
Stiff back this morning, that's for sure.
Because I'm just thinking where me and Eamon would sit. Is it 2 and 3, or would he go at number 4? What do you fancy?
I would be too frightened to do that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, it's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour for the following. Trump has said he won't deport Prince Harry because he thinks that being with Meghan is punishment enough. And there's shocking news that trans men, that's females who pretend that they're men, get seen first for fertility treatment and get it funded when real women don't. So ladies, if you want to skip the queue for IVF, you've got to say you're a man. It's a crazy world. And the American invasion of Britain has begun. Hooters is coming to Newcastle. I'm Leo Kearson. Tonight, I'm joined by comedians Steve N. Allen and Nick Dixon to take you through Sunday's top stories. This is Headliners. But before tomorrow's newspapers, let's go to tonight's headlines with Sam Francis.
Leo, thank you, and good evening to you. It's just after 11 o'clock. Well, the top story tonight, Health Minister Andrew Gwynn has become now the 4th high-profile figure to leave Sir Keir Starmer's Labour government since their election win. Do bear with me while I just make sure that you can definitely hear me. Over badly misjudged WhatsApp messages reportedly insulting constituents and colleagues, including allegedly hoping a 72-year-old woman would soon be dead. The Labour MP for Gorton and Denton has apologised, saying that he will continue to support the party. Labour says it's investigating and will take swift action if rules were breached. In other news, the parents of 2 girls killed in the Southport knife attack say they're trying to find light in the dark, speaking publicly for the first time since the tragedy. They've described their daughters Bibi and Elsie as confident, happy and affectionate, and said the killer's sentencing should not have been televised. Axel Ruda-Cabana was handed a life sentence with a 52-year minimum term, one of the highest ever recorded. The family say they want the girls to be remembered for their personalities, not the details of the crime. They've also welcomed a public inquiry into the attack. And apologies for the slight audio issues earlier. Protesters clashed with police in London less than an hour after senior Conservatives addressed a rally against a proposed Chinese mega embassy. More than 1,000 people gathered waving placards and chanting "Free Hong Kong." Former Security Minister Tom Tugendhat warned the embassy would be a grave mistake and accused the Chinese Communist Party of bringing fear to Britain. 2 people were arrested and tensions escalated after one woman collapsed in the rain-covered road, sparking confrontations between protesters and police. Tower Hamlets Council has rejected the plans for the embassy, but the government will now have the final say. The parents of a 15-year-old schoolboy stabbed to death in Sheffield have been leading a march today in his memory. Caroline and Mark Wilgoose walked with hundreds through the city, holding banners calling for an end to knife crime. Earlier, a mass was also held in Sheffield to remember Harvey. And the vicar of St Joseph's Catholic Church spoke to our GB News reporter, Anna Riley.
It was a very moving service. Sometimes simplicity is the best. And it came across very well, and people held the family very much in their prayers. One quote I will give from the service is this, that we cannot suffer as Harvey's family are suffering, but we can suffer with them, walk with them.
Well, the day of remembrance culminated with fans at Sheffield United's match clapping Harvey in tribute. We've also heard a boy, also aged 15, has been charged with his murder, with a trial date set for the 30th of June. And finally, a cold snap is sweeping in, with temperatures set to drop as low as -7 degrees over the coming days. Britain is also bracing for showery rain, with a yellow weather warning in place across much of the country and snow expected in northern areas. The Met Office says demand for healthcare is likely to rise too, but thankfully a return of the dreaded beast from the east is unlikely. Those are the latest headlines for now. Plenty more still to come here on GB News with Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam, and hello, I'm Leo Carson. Tonight, I'm joined by comedians Steve N. Allen and Nick Dixon to take you through Sunday's top stories. And let's have a look at some of these front pages. The Mail on Sunday leads with Minister sacked for "I hope you die" jibe about pensioners. The Sunday Express has Tories call for reform pact to save UK. And the Sunday Telegraph has Minister sacked for saying pensioners should die. That's that same story again. But let's look at the Mail, Steve, with that story about the Labour Health Minister who made some jokes. I didn't know Labour ministers could do that.
Well, they can't, because he's gone. Exactly that. Minister sacked for "hope you die" jibe about pensioners, which is unfair because that is their policy about winter fuel allowance. So I'm not sure why he loses his gig for this. Minister for Public Health wishing someone dead. There's an irony there, isn't there? So this is this Andrew Gwynn guy who's gone. To be fair, really pretty quick. This wasn't one of those, like, we'll think about it over the weekend. It's like, no, I'm sorry, you can't WhatsApp "I hope you die." There was some other thing, apparently some anti-Semitism. He also, in a message group, said some nasty things about Diane Abbott, so I'm sure you think he's not all bad. However...
I've got the jokes right here, Steve, and I've got to say, this is the tamest stuff. I mean, he would be thrown out of any normal WhatsApp group for not being, for being too straight-laced. This is really... I mean, you've got to understand, WhatsApp groups you're not declaiming on a public platform. This is where we have our private jokes and our in-jokes between friends.
Some of them are so toxic. I'm in one where I've had to leave it and rejoin with my burner number because it's just not safe to be linked to that. Because you get, as soon as a tragedy happens, and we would all be sitting here going, no, it's too soon. WhatsApp is the place where the jokes straight away come in, and no one can ever look at that. Some people are so sensitive, their face would melt like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, this is so different from the approach in America, where a member of Doge who'd just been hired was revealed to have said something naughty on the internet or whatever.
Is that big something?
Big Spheres. That guy. And J.D. Vance and Donald Trump said, no, hire him back. So, I mean, I don't think Starmer's going to do the same, because apparently we're not allowed to have humour.
Well... Yes, I mean, in a way, these sort of Labour types have form in not caring about old people, you could say, because in Brexit, there's very much this rhetoric, oh, all the Leavers are going to die off soon anyway. So they do have form in this kind of thing. But as you say, if we can't make jokes in WhatsApp groups, where can we? It's the last bastion of freedom that we have. You've written 7 things worse than this in the last hour. And, you know, "hope you die" on paper sounds bad, but I'm in a terrible position of having to defend a Labour person because, like, WhatsApp group, like you say, and like you were saying on Twitter, the person who leaks it, that's the real evil.
Absolute scum.
That's going against the honour code.
Yeah.
But the only thing that bothered me, well, I mean, apart from obviously all the terrible rhetoric, was the name of the group, Trigger Me Timbers, is just so cringe. It's so cringe. It's like, we're edgy, guys, Trigger Me Timbers. Unless you're actual lumberjacks, that is a terrible name. I don't even get it. It doesn't even sound like Shiver Me Timbers. What's the idea?
No.
Are they pirates? I don't understand it. Timbers, is it a pirates reference? I don't understand what it's a reference to. Maybe I'm missing the reference. Maybe it's genius. But to me, it's just lame as the message is. If you're going to go into WhatsApp, at least go hard or go home. Do you know what I mean?
I guess the only sort of justification for being hard on this person person is the fact that Labour, if, you know, a Tory minister or somebody else, a Reform minister, was caught to have made a joke in private, they would also be like, oh my God, he made a joke in private. This is the worst thing that's ever happened. He must be fired.
Yeah, so there's consistency, I suppose.
Yeah. I don't like consistency. Anyway, moving on to the Sunday Express, Nick. What have they got?
They've got Tories call for reform pact to save UK. And, of course, many people have been talking about this. Should the Tories merge with Reform? And this is the Tory party in itself, ironically. So it's another split. So Lord McKinley is very much saying they should do this. Peter Bedford, we already know Jacob Rees-Mogg has said it. Suella Braverman seems to have hinted it. And some people are against. Kemi Badenoch said she can't work with Farage. Rupert Lowe seems fairly unenthusiastic based on Reform doing a sort of a pact in the past or a deal. So it's a big question. I mean, I think they almost have to keep out, and which Lord McKinley's worried about here, the evils of another socialist government, as he puts it, and just this Labour government is so awful. You've almost got to be open to anything just to keep out this horrendous Labour government before it completely destroys the country, in my objective opinion.
But we talk about, you know, a horrific socialist government. I mean, we had 14 years of that under the Tories.
That's true.
Why would we want to bring the socialists, these far left,
yes, it's dangerous,
communist Tories?
Well, the idea is you only get the good ones. You get Suella. You know, you get the few good ones. There's a few good ones. We like Esther.
Most of the good ones are dead.
No, you got Esther McVeigh, Suella Braverman. You got Lord Frost. Yeah, you got some good ones. And I'm just
Jenrick.
Yeah. So you got some good ones. So you hope that you just take the few good ones, you know, and then leave all the Lib Dem ones.
Yeah. I mean, do you think this is inevitable, Steve?
Well, yes, but not now. It's an absolute waste of paper now. Every single day, the Daily Express is obsessed with this will they, won't they, the Ross and Rachel of politics. It doesn't matter. They'll say they won't. They say they can't because that's what you have to do. We're not even near the election, but when you get near election, you'll say, no, there's no chance of us teaming up because you always have to say that on the way in. And then when the results come in and you're forced into some sort of coalition... Look, we live in a universe, the 616 universe, this one, the main one, where the Lib Dems and the Tories got together. No one thought that would ever happen. They were always in interviews saying, not a chance. And then, of course, when you're forced to, you're forced to. So ignore it until then. Why are they put on the front page? You've got two parties who say they won't and at some point might have to. Stop wasting our time.
OK, and moving on, we've got the Telegraph, Steve. They've got that story about the Labour minister being sacked, and they've also got this story about the cost of immigration.
Taxpayers face £200 billion cost of Labour failure on migration, says Kemi Badenoch. This, according to a think tank that's looked at the number of people moving here, 800,000 recent arrivals between 2021 and 2024.
Let me
Google who was in charge. Which government? I remember it was definitely a government who was in 2020. It's unbelievable. That darned Labour people, with their precognition, somehow travelling back in time to make it more Laboury back in the day. No, you hit the nail on the head. It's exactly... She's deflecting.
Yeah, although, I mean, she's deflecting, but Labour don't seem to be doing a huge amount to dissuade illegal migrants from coming here or to reduce the amount of legal migration. And there was a report, I think it was in the Telegraph, today about the extent of migration over the next 10 years. It's projected to hit something like 10 million more people, and our population is going to explode. And it's already hard to find parking.
Yes, it's a great point. I know, and I hate to have a go at Kemi, but I'm sort of with Steve on this. When she says the country simply can't afford the Labour Party's lax approach to immigration, it's just hard to take it seriously because she was there during the Boris wave, and there's that unfortunate footage where she seems to be pro more migration from 2018. She has changed her mind. So maybe we should move on. But it's just I don't think politically she's ever going to be able to win this party unless she just like builds a massive wall or something. If she does something really extreme on immigration, she just starts deporting her own friends and family. Then they'd be like, OK, she's learnt her lesson.
OK, let's have a look at some more of the front pages. We've got the Observer with Labour to fix benefit system to get people back into work. We've also got a story there about gambling firms sending users' data to Facebook. The Sunday Times has we're constantly looking for light in the darkness. That's the interviews with the families of the tragic dead children in Southport. And the Daily Star has, we've got the Scandi shivers. Apparently it's cold. I know it's cold because I've been outside. Let's have a closer look at those. So the Observer with this Labour promise to fix the benefit system.
Yeah, Labour to fix benefit system to get people back into work. lol, really, because it's no one's ever managed to fix it. But they're saying that rules that force benefit claimants into all or nothing choices need to be redrawn. Fair enough. And they're pointing out people who are too sick to work receive a higher payment than those deemed able to work or able to do some work. And this is one of the many perverse incentives of the system. But no one's ever managed to fix it. It strikes me as only two possible reasons. One would be that they just realise it's not an election winner to sort of cut people off benefits, or it's just not worth putting the resources in. Because if you really wanted to fix it, you'd make job centres reasonably high prestige jobs rather than absolute hellholes, and you would make that a good job where you could actually have a chance of getting people into work. You would radically incentivise people to get back into it. Maybe this is what they're going to do, but I'll believe it when I see it, because every government said this, but it's been the same my entire lifetime as far as I can remember.
Yeah, I mean, I think the drive for equity, where people who are unemployed or can't be bothered working can get the same amount of money and resources as somebody who's working. I mean, there's people out there striving away, and remember, when you're working, you've got the risk of possibly losing your job. So if you're unemployed, there's no chance of losing your unemployed status. So, if you're unemployed, if you can't be bothered getting a job, and you're getting your house paid for, you're getting all your benefits, all your, you can take the kid round the doctors and get it diagnosed with whatever you can get it diagnosed with, just Google it. And I know people who do this. Whenever I read in The Guardian that only 0.3% of benefits claimants are fraudulent, man, I must have known every single one of them growing up.
But this is a slightly different issue with the way that you can get trapped on sickness benefit, because if you then try and work, you'll be moved across to the unemployment benefit, and then all of a sudden you've got to fill in forms. If you get it wrong, then you eye Daniel Blake it. So you end up in a situation where people might actually want to work. It's not great for your mental health not working, but they daren't even make it look like they can work for fear of moving into the different system. Yeah. Rachel Reeves, as much as you can sit here and say that, I mean, look, she doesn't seem to be great at maths, and I love maths, so we're never going to be on the same page. But this is one thing that she's always been in favour of looking at, which made her really not popular with the Labour Party during the Corbyn era, when it was like, oh, you want to actually try and improve things so that people might be able to work? How dare you? What's wrong with you? Evil. So this has been a little pet project for her for a while. Something could move on this, because there is no point forcing people to not even be able to look for work.
Yeah. They can't be expected. If you're off work, you can't be expected to say, I'm going to make my life so much harder and have less money. Humans are wired for survival. They're just not going to do it. That's why I say you have to radically incentivise work and make it an absolute no-brainer that it's better to work. But no one's ever managed to crack that, it seems to be. Yeah,
it's interesting how there's far less sickness stopping people working in countries that don't have sickness benefits. So, if you go to India, actually, they've probably got it now. But yeah, I mean, Rachel Reeves at least could give somebody a job as a hairdresser, and they could cut her hair. Moving on, we've got the Sunday Times.
That's a brave comment coming from... I wouldn't have gone there if I were you.
This will look great in about 7 years. So, unlike yours, which will continue to fall out. Yeah. We've got the Sunday Times, Steve.
Man, makes me sexy. Oh, Sunday Times, yeah. So, as you mentioned, they've got the story of the family of the Southport families have been interviewed, and you can read all the details inside. Heart-wrenching and moving as it is. They've also got the story. If you want to get angry, this is one to get angry at. Starmer asked civil service head to quash BBC story on Sue Gray pay. If you don't remember, previously, they thought it would be a good idea to pay Sue Gray £3 more than the Prime Minister. Look, I'm not saying like £3's not... I'd take it now if you're offering it, but what a pointless win. Yeah. Because then you set yourself up for all of the stories about why do you think you're worth more than the Prime Minister? She's earning more than the Prime Minister. Absolutely ridiculous. What she should have done is been like, oh, no, I'll get £3 less. Give me some of them free suits. I'll flog them on eBay, because they've got a lot of free suits in there.
Yeah. Well, what they could have said is she's worth £3 more because of what she did when she was in the civil service, helping to bring down the Tory government. And now we're rewarding her for that. I mean, that's what they could have said if, hypothetical situation.
Yeah. But the idea that, what's his name, Chase, whatever it was, Simon Case calls up and goes, look, could you nix this story? That's not new. That happens all the time. It shouldn't happen. No media organisation should ever kill a story because someone in politics says so. This is not the first time it's been tried, and it's all wrong. It's always wrong whenever anyone tries it.
Starmer knows that it's just like show business. You can't find out what everyone's getting paid because the whole thing will be over. It's because everyone's on different rates. It's going to be so... You can't find out that she's making more than a... You can see why I wanted to quash it. It's a total embarrassment.
I know what Lewis is on. That's the only reason I still turn up.
Right, because it's far less than you. But I'm telling you, the whole thing would collapse.
Lewis is getting paid.
Well, he pays to come here.
In meat.
But the amount has gone down. That's what he means.
Let him use the coffee machine.
Yeah, he sleeps here sometimes. It's a good deal. Yeah. And by the way, this paper is £4.50, just in case you were missing, Lewis.
This is surely complete smoke and gun proof that the BBC is in the pocket of the government.
I'm not sure we're allowed to say that because this country we're in, we could all go to jail. But it does sound a bit like that.
That was a comedic comment that I made.
It's satirical, yeah.
But also, just to cover for Ofcom reasons, it doesn't disprove your point, but no, this isn't evidence of it because they still ran the story.
OK. Oh, that's a good point. Thank you for digging us out of that one. Well, that's the front pages looked at. Join us after the break to get under the covers with Ed Miliband panicking over his lecky bill, why the government is flooding Britain with cheap Chinese scooters, and Prince Harry escapes deportation just for now. See you in a moment.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We were talking earlier about the issue of Siri listening to you. Well, it's not just your own conversations being sort of harvested for data. But it's a problem with AI. So what seems to have happened yesterday is that Apple issued a alert saying that Luke Littler had won the darts before he had. I mean, imagine what would, if he then gone on to lose, how that would have looked. I mean, obviously, because he went on to win, at least they got the story right. But before it had happened. So what it seems to happen is that the AI farms existing stories. And what it has done, that's the alert. We can see the alert there. Now, and it also claiming that Brazilian tennis player Rafael Nadal had come out as gay when actually a different Brazilian tennis player was actually mentioned in the original story. So what it does is you see that's branded as BBC Sport. What the Apple AI system does is it farms alerts that it thinks people are getting from the source and then summarises them into one. That's going to be my question. Into one alert.
Looks to me like you would assume, OK, the BBC are reporting this.
Absolutely.
So the BBC News might be saying something else.
So it could happen to any news organisation.
This has highlighted a massive issue. I mean, having editorial judgment and quality control, because if this is going on, it's just contributing to the flow of misinformation. Yes. And we know that this is a problem on social media, people reporting false things. But if it seems to come from trusted news sources, that is a massive issue in credibility. I mean, if you had something like Reuters, who's a big news provider, doing this, you could hold people accountable, you could make changes, but when it's the AI doing it, I mean, what do? You're going to have to reprogram it in some way.
And if you just lost control, if you're a news source, you've lost control of what goes out because it basically farms it, puts your logo on it and sends it out even when it's nonsense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and let's look at one of your comments from Yorsay. Richard from Hull, I think he lives in Hull, says, I think a message leaking says more about the person that leaked it than who said what. Exactly, Richard. That's the person who should be punished. Moving on to the papers, we've got the Daily Mail now, and Ed Miliband can't eat a bacon sandwich, and he can't meet an election pledge over energy prices either, Nick.
Yeah, but Ed Miliband in panic over soaring bills as energy costs rise. He orders fellow ministers to make cuts to help him stick to his green cheap power vow. So we did one about Ed Miliband last night, and his sort of claim that bills are going up. That just proves I was right, which was an interesting claim. But now Dale Vince has been grilling him about this, and everyone's saying, well, when are they going to come down? How much are they going to come down by? It's all a bit boring. I like this bit when the Energy Minister, Michael Shanks, says, I'd love to be able to say that we can flick a switch and reduce bills overnight. It got me thinking, when we flick a switch, if Ed Miliband had his way, nothing will come on. There'll be no, just a wind turbine in Scotland somewhere just turns on and nothing happens.
Yeah.
That's all I've got.
The headline makes it sound like he's just trying to reduce his bills, like trying to cut bills. He's going around the office going, do you need this light on? Like fathers do.
Telling his kids to close the windows.
And on that, I've worked out how we can actually save more money. The problem is all these new fancy LED lights. So there are, you get your 11 watter or something. So if you turn that off, you save 11 watts. Whereas in the old days with the incandescent bulbs, if you don't turn that on, you save 60 watts.
Right.
So I've swapped all my bulbs back to the old incandescent ones.
So these new energy-saving bulbs are actually not saving us energy at all. And it seems also a strategic error for Labour and also for previous governments to have abandoned North Sea oil. But, I mean, Ed Miliband has really, taken it out back and shot it in the head. And all the windfall taxes they put on North Sea oil just dissuade anybody from ever investing in the UK because we treat our energy like Venezuela does.
Yeah, and there is a strong argument to say you can actually you can do the eco version because you're not then getting your oil tankered halfway around the world, so you've got your transportation costs are lower. This is only the small step where you have some of this oil to keep the power cheap before you get your nuclear online and then you get your renewables. I'm not saying they ain't going to work. I'm sure they are. But they're not ready yet, and why have the painful bit? Do the thing where it's cheaper, is what I've always said. Like, if you could halve my bill, then make it maybe, 40% cheaper, keep that 10%, go and spend it on your projects.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind, as long as I'm winning on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on, we've got the Sunday Express now with more evidence that Labour are steered by communists. The difference is, this time, that the communists are overseas, in China, Steve.
Yeah, fury as Labour scraps China tariffs in a huge blow to stunned UK businesses. But wait until you find out which 3 businesses are affected, because at the moment it's, oh my God, the nation's going to end. So the government shot British manufacturers of e-bikes.
Yeah.
So
important part of the economy, Steve.
Are they, though? Because they're the bikes for lazy people. It's making cycling good for people who can't be bothered to cycle. It's like going to the gym and asking a big man to lift that for you because you don't want to put your back out. It's the lazy version of cycling.
That's a good idea.
These folding e-bikes are the ones. And, I mean, I can't really judge because I buy a lot of cheap stuff from China. You've got the apps on my phone now. You know, the thing, shopping like a billionaire, that one.
Yeah.
And I do spend a lot of money on trying to get space. But... and actually, most of my shed at home is made from this absolute cheap rubbish. I've got a Bluetooth thing for when I'm on camera, and it only speaks Chinese. So I don't know if it's pairing or about to explode, but I still cram it in. But yes, there are a few companies that make e-bikes say, but the government are trying to make e-bikes cheaper for us. It's barely going to affect the economy. I don't like e-bikes, but I don't like e-bike companies. I've got nothing on this.
But is this, Nick, is this the sort of industry that we want? I mean, number one, do we want to be shutting down our cutting-edge electronic bike manufacturers? And number two, do we want to flood the country with teenagers on cheap e-bikes on the pavement?
Well, what I'm annoyed about is you're attacking British business and helping China for no reason. The motto could be Britain last of this government, you know what I mean? And also, e-bikes, it's a British thing. It was invented in Yorkshire. It was e-bikes. I'm sorry. I could barely even see that joke through. But they just say that it's people who don't understand the industry. Of course they don't. This Labour government doesn't understand the industry, and they're harming our e-bike business. I'm furious.
But from the consumer point of view, you can get a cheaper e-bike.
From a consumer point of view, I agree with you, they shouldn't even have them. I'm like Peter Hitchinson, they're an abomination, they shouldn't be on the pavement. Yeah. But from a business point of view and a patriotic point of view, I'm outraged.
And I think there's a certain value in having them manufactured here and having them more expensive because I just want rich people to be able to ride them. I don't want teenagers on the pavement. These things go really fast, and you see these kids zipping about in them, or Deliveroo drivers or whatever. It's ridiculous.
You sounded so old there, but I completely agree. You sounded like me, frankly.
Yeah, I just don't like them on the pavements. That's all it is. We've got the Observer now, and Donald Trump has revoked Joe Biden's top secret security clearance, which seems a bit like overkill. Joe Biden isn't a security risk because he won't be able to remember anything he's seen, Nick.
That's one argument. It's Donald Trump revokes Joe Biden's security clearance in latest revenge move, which is like the Observer or Guardian or whatever, trying to make it sound bad, but that just sounds cool. And actually, you find out straight away that Biden set the precedent in 2021 when he instructed the intelligence community to stop Trump accessing details on national security, a courtesy provided to former presidents. So Biden started this, basically, and he's going to not get his daily intelligence briefings, which is sad because he does need daily intelligence briefings of all kinds. But it is the safest bet, isn't it? Because you don't give anything to Biden that's important. He might just be doing a speech at a school somewhere. He goes, well, it's kind of like that thing I found out about JFK yesterday. You're like, don't say that thing, though, Joe.
Let me sniff your hair.
Yeah. No, it's the safest move.
Absolutely.
Yeah. None of the presidents need it. It's a stupid thing that they kept doing, like, oh, you had a job once, well, let's give you the top secret information.
It is strange.
We don't do it over here, it's fine.
Yeah. And I don't have access to any of my old work systems.
I did for about a
That's
month
because
until they changed the passwords.
yeah, Leo's ended very badly. That's the difference.
Yeah.
And this seems to be another example of something that the Democrats did to Trump that is coming back to bite them on the bum. So, you know, with Trump...
the lawfare.
Yeah, Biden had to pardon all these people because he knows that Trump could come after them and try and put them in jail, like they did with Trump's people.
Yeah, the great thing is that Trump has finally woken up to this, and things like pardoning the January 6th prosecutors, all these executive orders. We've realised, like, the left have been doing this for ages. They're going to fight dirty, so it's like, OK, fine, now we're going to do it. And Trump is the absolute worst person, from their perspective, the absolute nightmare person to be like, right, now all bets are off. But it's great, obviously, to watch.
Yeah,
for us.
to watch, and I can't wait for the trend to come over here. Anyway, that's it for this section. But coming up, how the Home Office are getting their hands on your nudes, and why the Democrats are doing the noble thing and voluntarily sterilising themselves. What a world. Don't go anywhere. See you in a moment.
Hello there, very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The cloud that we've had around throughout Saturday is going to be staying with us into Sunday as well, particularly across central areas of the UK, Northern Ireland, into parts of England and Wales. We'll continue to see outbreaks of rain and drizzle this evening and overnight. For the far north and south, though, we will start to see some clearer spells emerging, and underneath those clear skies, temperatures will drop off quite a touch, as low as -7 degrees Celsius for some rural parts of Scotland. This will be accompanied by some freezing fog patches, maybe also some icy stretches where surfaces are still wet, particularly if left untreated. Despite the very cold start to the day in Scotland, though, it is going to be a very sunny one here once the fog does eventually clear its way off, and we'll hold on to the sunshine right throughout the day. For Northern Ireland, then, into those central areas of England and Wales, it's going to be dull, drab and dreary, unfortunately. Further outbreaks of drizzle to contend with. But for the far south of England, we're starting the day off with something a touch brighter here. The cloud will tend to build from the east throughout the day, so we're going to be left with the fringes of parts of Pembrokeshire, West Wales and down towards Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly that will hold on to the sunshine the longest, whereas further rain pushes into southeastern England later on. With the cloud around, it is going to be another rather cold day, particularly once you factor in the easterly wind that's going to start building once again. So it's going to be feeling colder than these temperatures necessarily show on the chart. And that easterly wind is something that will hold on into the new working week as well. High pressure stays in control across Scandinavia, allowing that easterly wind to push its way in, and that is going to add a wind chill factor on top of the already cold conditions. Further showers pushing in from the North Sea with an extensive area of cloud. Those showers will be wintry over higher ground areas as well. It's a scenario that we're going to have to get used to because it is expected to stay very similar throughout the forthcoming week. Cloudy for the vast majority of us, and temperatures still slightly below average for the time of year. Bye-bye. Enjoy your evening.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I've got a Yorkshire comment that Steve is very keen on me reading out. He's just given me his phone. It says, Nick F. says, absolutely spot-on analysis by Steve then regarding utilising the energy resources under our feet while the lower carbon technologies are developed and expanded nuclear is being built. What part of that doesn't Eco-Loon Miliband understand? Oh, you two should just get a room.
It's a bit dry.
What are the odds that I accidentally passed that to you?
There's also Jay says, people on job seekers allowance should be provided with food stamps and assistance for travel expenses to attend interviews. I don't think they should get that much. Anyway, We've got the papers now with the Sun on Sunday with good news for Prince Harry. Trump is not going to deport him back to the country that he hates, Steve.
Trump says Harry has enough problems with wife as he rules out deportation. Now, this is mean, this is misogyny, this is cruel, this is... But, no, I'm sure it's bad, but it's I think the headline doesn't even do it justice, because the thing is, they've paid off the punchline early in the sentence. The way that Trump actually said it, he was talking about deportation, he says, I don't want to do that. I can't do an impression. I'll leave him alone. He's got enough problems with his wife. She's terrible. And it's a bit like that Partridge clip where it's like, don't do it in a jaunty voice. It's like a Rodney Dangerfield thing. But I think it's the best of both worlds, because the issue is maybe Harry lied on his immigration papers and said he didn't do drugs, but in his book he said he did do drugs, so he lied in one of them. He could have been deported for this, but for the people who don't like Harry, he would have been deported back here, so we would have been closer. It's the win, basically. He'll get to stay there. He got an insult, so everyone's happy, and he can stay with his wife until the divorce.
Which is, what, going to be at least 2-3 weeks. And their empire seems to be crumbling as well, Nick. Things aren't going... I thought they'd be able to just continue milking the royal family and destroying it for years, but apparently not. You get one shot and that's it.
I think this is very nice of Trump to show pity on Harry. He says he's whipped. He's totally whipped. He says he's being led around by the nose. I mean, it must be brutal. But in a way, it's more brutal to not deport him and just say his life is so awful. Putting up with Meghan, I'm not even going to deport him because it's bad enough. But this is the one advantage at the moment we have over the USA, that we've given them Harry. That's about the only good thing I can say about the country. Yeah. Because if he deported, we'd have to deal with him again.
Yeah. And also, you know, maybe all the royals should be moved to this sort of self-sustaining financial model. They should be privatised.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that.
I'm not sure about that. We might get some good ones again.
One day. We'll see. We've got the Mail on Sunday now, and those Liberals in California are going to allow people to access your privates and enter your back passage, Nick.
Interesting, yeah. Home Office orders Apple to let it access encrypted data stored by users worldwide in its cloud service. And Big Brother Watch have pointed out that breaking encryption will not make us safe, it will just erode civil liberties. It is a worry. When you think about Apple themselves have been quite evil in the Tim Cook reign, IMH show, although lately he's got with the program and donated to Trump. But then again, are they more evil than our government? So it's, you know, it worries me that this data, it's authoritarian. And if you think about it, if it's the UK government that's doing it, that hates British people, do you really want them looking in your cloud? I don't know if I have anything in there, but I doubt I want them looking at it.
Well, yeah, and we've seen recently, and not so recently, the British state persecuting people for having legitimate opinions that they've expressed peacefully without any violence whatsoever. I mean, Jamie Michael, a former Royal Marine who just criticised the immigration policy and criticised politicians, they tried to prosecute him for hate speech, you know, some sort of stirring up racial hatred, or one of these really vaguely defined terms that, you know, anybody can be nabbed under. So, yeah, if they could go through everybody's data and every word everybody has ever said, then they're going to be able to find something to pin one of these rubbish sort of made-up hate crime laws on you.
And this doesn't even have to be like, oh, I don't like this specific government. You set the precedent. At some point, a government will be in that disagrees with you, and then they can do this. I'm all in favour of keeping the encryption. Look, I know there's some downsides to it, but the theory would be that then you could get access to all the terrorist messages. Well, as soon as the terrorists know that Apple will hand over data, then they won't be using that. Well, it's not that difficult to have, like, a flash drive and a Raspberry Pi attached to your Wi-Fi. Then you could have this thing that's impossible for anyone to find. So I think the only thing that Apple should ever do is hand over the data still encrypted. That feels like you'd be ticking the box. There you go. It's 256-bit encryption. Good luck with it. See you in about 300 years.
Or, I know what some tech services do is they have an algorithm that searches, and then if there's something that flags up, then they can present it. So then you still have your privacy, unless you're talking about, you know, making a bomb.
Yeah.
Which, obviously, now I've said that and my phone's listening, now I'm going to get flagged.
You were already flagged.
We've got the Mail on Sunday now with good news for women who want to get fertility treatment for free. You can just pretend you're a man, Steve.
I am, thanks. What? Outrage as NHS offers trans men fertility treatment for free, while many women are forced to go private after being turned down on cost grounds. To slightly nullify this story, what it is, the NHS will offer free egg freezing treatment. And by the way, recent weather, ladies, check, yours might already be done. But if you're having a procedure on the NHS which might impact your fertility, And not wanting to have a family at the age you're at isn't done on the NHS, so you don't get free NHS egg freezing for that life choice. But if you pick out the individual cases, because transitioning would be included on this, then you can go, look at these two groups. The way to solve it would be that anything that you elect to do shouldn't then receive free treatment for it.
Yeah, and surely transitioning, that's a choice.
That's
you
what I mean.
I've decided I want to be a man for some reason.
That would solve it, yeah.
Steve needs to stop nullifying. We need to hype this up and shout about it in a lurid way. No, it is bad, doesn't it? I mean, endometriosis, you don't get this, but you get it for transitioning.
You might get it for endometriosis if it's predicted it will impact your fertility. So even that part of the story you read lower down.
But why? But then why transitioning? Why just over normal? I shouldn't say normal in that context. So you get in trouble. If you're a woman and you're just worried about your eggs, why should a trans woman get priority over that?
But because the reason in this particular case is deciding not to have kids isn't done on the NHS. So why would the NHS come in and go, sorry, have you decided?
Yes, because you're saying it suddenly becomes on the NHS for that, but that's not medical. But you're saying that is medical, or are you disagreeing that a trans person should get it?
No, I think you should sort it out by changing it so that any elected thing, which would include transitioning, shouldn't then get the pay for your own egg freezing.
The reality of it is that the NHS still has the woke hierarchies in place. The reason this happens is because a trans person, in their view, is more oppressed than a normal woman. I've said it again by mistake.
Equity. This is balancing things out between the horrible, oppressive, normal women and the wonderful, elevated, oppressed trans men.
Look, I know. I see the urge to try and make it like all about the headline and get really angry, but
that's literally what they're doing.
But
that's our job, Steve.
I know. Well, I'm not doing well here. This is why I'll never be booked again. But you can't be sitting here thinking the NHS should be paying for women to freeze their eggs. If that were a story without mentioning trans, I'm sure we'd be sitting here going, well, that's taxpayer money letting women freeze their eggs.
Well, I certainly don't think there should be a discrepancy between regular women and women who pretend that they're men. I mean, that's
they should all pay for their own egg freezing, and that's where
there should be a national pro having children really young campaign that says that you don't wait till you have to freeze your eggs.
Yeah.
Have children now. It'd be a bit weird, but I'm sure there's a way of doing it.
That's a great point. It's not just one of Nick's sexual fantasies. That is a great point. Because when people freeze their eggs, what they're finding is quite often the eggs aren't viable, and because it's 10, 15 years later, there's no sort of comeback, and it's like you're too old to
freezer burn. Have you ever seen like a fish finger that you've left there for too long? That's it.
I could show you some sausages. So yeah, just do it young. Our advice. That sounded terrible, didn't it? Do it.
I don't want to be in your WhatsApp group. That's all I'm saying.
Do it at an appropriate age. The Sunday Telegraph now with some good news. Morons are deliberately removing themselves from the gene pool, Nick.
You could say that. I'm a Democrat politician. This is why I sterilised myself after Trump's election. There needs to be a colon there instead of a full stop. And then you've sorted it. That's a perfect headline. That's the reason you've done it. But that's not what they mean. They mean, I'm a Democrat politician, and now let me elaborate on why I did this. But you've already answered it. So it's Laura Pahutsky, 36, who made this shocking claim that she said, I underwent surgery to ensure that I would never have to navigate a pregnancy in Donald Trump's America. So sterilising herself as if that she might not have access to contraception or something. So it's a kind of radical political point. But the kind of radical political point that's a bit silly, that's like so extreme and unnecessary. And it's sad, really, but it's like that guy that set himself on fire over Palestine, and everyone's like, what are you doing?
It was so Trump could build a golf resort there.
Yeah, I mean, but like you say, there is a kind of natural selection to this because religious conservatives will end up having more children and the woke left will not have children and will eventually presumably die out.
And the
arguably
Amish will inherit the earth.
Yeah, she was also, some people have pointed out she was 36, so was she really going to have children anyway? Is it sort of grandstanding? I'm not trying to be mean, people have said that.
It's a bit like me boycotting Ferrari.
Yeah, you could say that. I have actually boycotted Ferrari, and I'm sticking to it. I don't care what anyone says.
Well, look at this story which says, like, she doesn't want to have a kid in Trump's America. Yeah. Just Google how long terms are in America. You don't have to sterilise yourself forever. Just promise to just do butt stuff for 5 years. But I get that the headline would be different, then, wouldn't it? I'm a Democrat politician. This is why I'm just doing butt stuff in Trump's America. It's not quite the same story.
Said it twice. But
you're allowed those words.
The
I'm not sure.
It's going to be going in the direction of her husband. So
can I just say, though, Steve, you've missed something, which is people who think like this think Trump's going to be in forever because he's going to just elect himself forever leader.
Has anybody suggested that to him? That would be fantastic.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay forever. They're cloning me. I'm going to live forever as president. It's not a bad idea.
OK. OK, let's go to the break and come back for the final section with Elon Musk's brain upgrades, mentally ill people's facial downgrades, and it's good news for Englishmen who like big breasts. You won't want to miss it. See you in a moment.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're looking for some winter sun, Spain wouldn't be a bad shout. Fine, at least for Sunday. Unsettled in Italy and reasonably breezy in Greece. We've seen that quite frequently recently, and with some showers to boot. But across Italy, well, that's where some more unsettled weather is heading, especially in the west, the north, and then Sicily through Sunday and into Monday. Iberia, fine for now, but it will turn more showery from the west as the week begins.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Estelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This was thought to be a Ruskin. Ruskin was a very considerable polymath, an artist as well as many other things. So, do you know why it was submitted for reappraisal? Was there a bit of a suspicion that it had been misidentified?
No, as you say, you know, it's a service that Christie's offer. You can submit an artwork that you have, so anyone can submit it and request an estimate, and then the auction house's appraisal service allows you space as well to describe it and ask for evaluation. And Christie's sort of looked at it behind the sheet of dirty old glass and recognised a sort of Turner-esque mood and feel and ambience about it. And because there was this close relationship between Ruskin and Turner, which is fascinating, we'll come on to that shortly, but they sort of felt, well, the brushstrokes are very strong, the line is very economic, and the colour of the palette seems to be rather Turner-esque. And then they called in a specialist paper historian who confirmed that actually the paper that was used was one that Turner favoured himself. So yes, it was originally considered to be by Ruskin, but then we discovered something more magnificent. And don't forget, what's really interesting, now it's for sale. The lucky buyer is not just buying a picture. The lucky buyer is buying a life story, a relationship that actually changed the course of art history because of the relationship between Ruskin and Turner themselves.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that.
When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Sunday Telegraph now, and Britain's Tourist Board has some woke advice. They suggest they're not looking for tourists from the Trump administration, Steve.
So don't say able-bodied, use non-disabled, Britain's Tourist Board tells Guide. This is Visit Britain. With no evidence of anyone being upset by this at all, they've brought in some rules. And the rules are to say non-disabled when defining... You're defining...
double negative.
Well, that's it. You're defining someone by the absence of something. So as a non-gout sufferer or pile sufferer or something with a non-ADHD, you'll be there all day listing the things I don't have to try and define me by it. It's an infinite amount, isn't it? And they also say don't say victim or sufferer what kind of a tour is this? You go around St Bart's, what a miserable time. And also, don't say that someone with dwarfism has dwarfism, because that would be offensive. They suggest saying someone with restricted growth. It's worse. That's an insult.
Much worse.
Well, go on.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to wrap it up just by saying they say that your guide... This could be good for business if you're a tour guide or whatever using this, because then you will find potential customers who are searching for things like disabled-friendly hikes. But I thought you can't say that.
Yeah.
So you'll need to be looking for hikes and hikes for non-disabled people who aren't sufferers or are suffering from not having a disability.
So
I'm very confused.
non-disabled people with a disability is the correct term for people who would go on those hikes, but wouldn't go on those hikes because they're...
It's very complicated. We have Toby Young here, my mate Toby, who I refuse to call Lord Young. I can't do it, but he's here saying it's like saying non-deaf instead of perfect hearing, or non-ginger. Toby, you saying ginger's a disability? I completely object to that. But also, apparently, you meant to call dwarves magical people. When it comes to, in the case of the remake of Snow White, that can't be true, can it?
Is this suggesting that they live at the foot of a rainbow and have pots of gold?
That can't be. Apparently, that's the correct term. That can't be the correct. But that's what it says. Anyway, it's incredible. It's trying to. Some things have to be the norm. I'm not the norm. The people couldn't live like me because it would die out because I don't have any kids. So I accept that I'm not the norm. There has to be a norm, and it's not offensive to be out of the norm. It's like when Danny Kruger talked about the normative family. That's all he meant. It doesn't mean that you're terrible if you're not in it. Though I've just suddenly realised that Steve was guilty of this. Remember when you said cis woman and you got in trouble because that's really the non-norm to say it should just be woman, and you were saying cis woman, but really a woman should just be called a woman, not the outlier.
Yeah, but in the full context of it, the question I was asked was, how do you stop violence against trans women? I said, we just want to stop violence against trans women, cis women. Everyone should be. And that on my way to building up to anyone, someone spotted a prefix. And I was told off for bringing my modern language into a studio, to which I said, modern, that's Latin. And I think that made it work.
No one likes a smart Alex, Steve. But, all right.
They've made it too complicated. Anyway, the Sunday Telegraph now, and if you thought children were already being taught to hate their country, it's about to get a whole lot worse, Nick.
Shocking. Pupils should not be taught greatness of British Empire, Bridget Phillipson told. So the Telegraph has analysed almost 70 submissions from leading education groups. Showed my education there by failing to say the word education. But that must have been painful reading through this garbage. So the review wants a root and branch overhaul of everything good, I'm paraphrasing. And, it's the usual stuff. They want to attack Britain. And there's the Runnymede Trust, a race equality think tank, which shouldn't be a thing, says history teaching in many schools is still focused on narrow celebratory accounts of our island story. Yeah, because we're a little island that became the best country in the world and ran the whole blooming world. The sun never set on the empire. That's worth talking about. But no, we've got to talk about how awful we are because this Labour government are leftist subversives who have hijacked the country.
Well, yeah, and also this rhetoric of decolonisation and the sort of sub issues of anti-whiteness. This echoes what radicalised Axel Rudikabana. He said, Britain needs a white genocide. He read a lot of decolonisation material and read about the colonial activities, and this is what made him angry. I mean, I think this is the Bell Foundation that they need to end.
I think it's such a shame that they try and take the argument so far, because if the argument was, do you know what, there probably would have been a bit of a racist chewed back then a bit, which is also a sentence you can say about some 1970s sitcoms, which is fine, but that doesn't mean, but therefore you must not teach any of the positives. Well, that's a ridiculous way to look at it. It clearly was a mixed bag, and there were some greatnesses, some upsides.
There were only greatnesses. Moving on, we've got the Observer now, and Elon Musk is giving hope to disabled people. Is this why lefties hate him, Steve?
Non-disabled, abled people who are living with... Elon Musk has put a chip in a paralysed man's brain. Now he can move things with his mind.
Wow.
Should we be amazed or terrified? It's terrified. Just to cut to the chase on that, this guy will have the ability to move things with his mind. This is like Series 3 of The Flash, when the Thinkers start. Anyway, you might not have seen that. It's great for this guy, but for the rest of us, we should be terrified. The little chip that you can get implanted, which is, these are, early days, but at some point this could be moved. I worry that there'll be a backdoor to this. Elon's not going to leave the code just that he can't just have a little password and steer the guy around like a remote control car. I worry about that. But he can use a computer with his mind, and in the video you see him using X on brand. He can probably also, like, Bluetooth connect to his Tesla, probably sync
But if he goes to Blue Sky, then I think his chip gets cut.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. If you were blind or paralysed or something, you'd say, who would have the heart to say they shouldn't have this opportunity?
Yeah.
On the flip side, do you want Elon Musk running everyone's brains from his office? And you better like memes, or he'll just sort of melt you with his mind, basically.
I think having Elon Musk run people's brains would be a great idea. I've seen what he's done with America. It looks amazing. The show is nearly over. Let's take a final look at Sunday's front pages. The Mail on Sunday leads with Minister sacked for "I hope you die" jibe about pensioners. It was a joke in a WhatsApp chat. The Sunday Express has Tories call for reform pact to save UK. The Sunday Telegraph has Minister sacked for saying pensioners should die. The Observer has Labour to fix benefit system to get people back into work. And the Sunday Times has "We're constantly looking for light in the darkness." That's the families of the Southport victims. The Daily Star on Sunday has "We've got the Scandi shivers. It's going to be cold this week." And that's it for tonight's show. Thank you to my guests Steve and Nick. I'll be back tomorrow night hosting, joined by Simon Evans and Kerry Marks. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, then stay tuned for breakfast. Goodbye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. The cloud that we've had around throughout Saturday is going to be staying with us into Sunday as well, particularly across central areas of the UK, Northern Ireland, into parts of England and Wales. We'll continue to see outbreaks of rain and drizzle this evening and overnight. For the far north and south, though, we will start to see some clearer spells emerging, and underneath those clear skies, temperatures will drop off quite a touch, as low as -7 degrees Celsius for some rural parts of Scotland. This will be accompanied by some freezing fog patches, maybe also some icy stretches where surfaces are still wet, particularly if left untreated. Despite the very cold start to the day in Scotland, though, it is going to be a very sunny one here once the fog does eventually clear its way off, and we'll hold on to the sunshine right throughout the day. For Northern Ireland, then, into those central areas of England and Wales, it's going to be dull, drab and dreary, unfortunately. Further outbreaks of drizzle to contend with. But for the far south of England, we're starting the day off with something a touch brighter here. The cloud will tend to build from the east throughout the day, so we're going to be left with the fringes of parts of Pembrokeshire, West Wales and down towards Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly that will hold on to the sunshine the longest, whereas further rain pushes into southeastern England later on. With the cloud around, it is going to be another rather cold day, particularly once you factor in the easterly wind that's going to start building once again. So it's going to be feeling colder than these temperatures necessarily show on the chart. And that easterly wind is something that will hold on into the new working week as well. High pressure stays in control across Scandinavia, allowing that easterly wind to push its way in, and that is going to add a wind chill factor on top of the already cold conditions. Further showers pushing in from the North Sea with an extensive area of cloud. Those showers will be wintry over higher ground areas as well. It's a scenario that we're going to have to get used to because it is expected to stay very similar throughout the forthcoming week. Cloudy for the vast majority of us, and temperatures still slightly below average for the time of year. Bye-bye. Enjoy your evening.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. First, you'll win a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash to spend however you like. You'll also receive the very latest iPhone 16, and we'll send you on a shopping spree with £500 to spend in your favourite store. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, along with Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Chloe Dobbs, and Nikki Hodgson. Tonight on the show,
reparations grifters can sod off.
Legally defining Islamophobia will lead to cancellation of free speech.
when will politicians, my friends, stop the virtue signalling and focus on actual getting things done?
The turquoise tidal wave cannot be stopped.
And OnlyFans, not the dream career people thought it was. Who knew?
It's 6 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. Welcome to the Saturday 5. A very good evening to you. I'm Darren Grimes, and we begin tonight with some